to Talk That Transforms Fitness Edition, second episode with Coach JT Tapias. Really excited about continuing today's program to give you some practical, hands-on, how-to steps to really achieve the level of fitness that you desire. Coach JT, thank you so much for being on the call again, being on this podcast. It's great to be on with you. Welcome.
Thanks, brother. I'm excited to be here again and touch upon some of these things that can really just shift and transform your life.
Fantastic. Let's jump right in. You know, a lot of folks, there's misconceptions, a lot of confusion about diets. You know, people think that, just because it's a diet food or, fat-free, people assume that, hey, this is good for me. And, as you start to go down the rabbit hole, you realize a lot of these diet foods are really just junk foods. I like one of your analogies when it comes to food bars or protein bars. They're really candy bars. And when you really look at the ingredients and what they're made with, you really realize, wow, I might as well just have had a Snickers. There's really not that much of a difference here. Maybe just a scoop of protein powder and we'd be good to go. And, let's talk about nutrition and proper nutrition and the importance that it plays in the role in actually, getting fit, because you cannot outwork a bad diet, can you?
That's right. You can't outrun, you can't outwork a bad diet. Literally the work is done in the kitchen.
There you go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of these things where you often hear, and this is kind of the way I started, my revelation came as a byproduct of being frustrated by seeing people yo-yo diet and coming into my gym and, telling me that they had done, at 45 and Orange Theory, and they had worked with coaches and they had never been really able to get to their goal. And I was frustrated by that because I knew that there was a solution. And, we found that solution in nutrition, and it almost training took like a back seat. And so we were well known for people were coming through our gym looking to buy our memberships. And I would say, don't buy a membership yet. Do the nutrition program first, create a strong foundation. And then once you have that strong foundation, let's start training, because you're going to see tenfold results. And people are blown away like, wait, you don't want me to sign up to your program? Like, no, I want you to get this right. And so, that's
you feel like it's difficult to have people. I mean, like, I know it was for me when you first started talking about some of these principles. It's not that, we won't do the work, but do you find that like some people, because they have not been trained correctly, it's hard for them sometimes to get their head around like, okay, I don't have to work out using weights, in this particular phase, and, all these misconceptions that people have in their mind. Do you find you have to like sort of break through those first to get people on board, or how does that work?
Yeah, man. I mean, we have people that, first and foremost, when people come onto our program and they already have the habit of working out, like that's commendable, right? Because, that tells you that they're proactively trying to do something, and that's great. But, really talking these people into the idea that dialing in your nutrition is it absorbs so much of your mental bandwidth. Yeah. And that, we only have so much energy throughout the day for, tasks and activities and kids and family. And that if we're adding all of these components, nutrition, workouts, and cardio, and then you have to do life, you're not going to have enough energy to push through when it comes to self-control and discipline, because self-control and discipline are a muscle. And so if you're tapping into it through working out, doing cardio, going to work, being a dad, being a husband, when it comes to really exerting that energy that it takes to dial your nutrition in, you have no fuel in your tank. And so the idea really is that we want to go after the thing that brings the biggest return on investment. And we understand that is number one is nutrition, right? 90% of your results will come through proper nutrition. Number two is the right kind of cardio, not just any cardio, not just running, sweating, or doing any of the things that most people think, really help lose weight. And then number three, resistance training. Notice that we leave that last, right? And so, there's many ways to lose weight. You can run it off. You can work it off. You can get the surgery. You can take the pills. But all those things, man, they're not sustainable. They're not sustainable long term. So we got to do the work. We got to train our hunger cues, and that comes through, eating properly and really becoming attuned to the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger.
So I guess it'd be safe to say then we could actually eat our way to health if we wanted to. If we're really following the program, because that's that's actually what we're supposed to be doing, really, is eating correctly. And that's what really brings results. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I was going, there wasn't a lack of work ethic on my part in terms of discipline, going to the gym. I was going to the gym every day. I was hitting cardio. And I'll just give you just a quick story. There was one of the trainers that, my son had known for a long time. And, I'd seen her in there for a long time. And one day, I'd had my headphones on and she was waving at me. And I thought she was waving at someone behind me. And I looked back this way. She goes, "No, you." She goes, "Come here." And I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "What did you do?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You look great." I said, "Well, I lost, 32, 34 pounds. She goes, "Well, what did you do?" I said, I finally started eating correctly. She goes, "There you go." She goes, "I see you here all the time." And she said, "I was just telling one of my clients right here," she goes, "You can work out all day long, but until you start putting the right foods in your mouth, it's pretty much like you're spinning your wheels." And I was like, yeah, 3 years in a row for me, until I actually started making that adjustment with my mouth. I really wasn't seeing the difference in my body. So, the nutrition piece, the information I got from you on the nutrition piece, the education has been like so valuable, just even like food choice when I'm eating out, and you think twice, man, because, you actually do wear what you eat.
100%. And, that's the sad story, right? If anyone watching this can attest to the fact that if you've been to a traditional gym, a Planet Fitness, LA Fitness, you've been to any of those big gyms, what's ironic is that when you look around, it's rare to see someone who's actually in good shape. And you're like,
"Oh, true, man.
What?" And people can argue and say, well, that's why they're at the gym, JT. They're trying to get fit. The problem is you see the same exact suspects on month 6, 12, 18, 3 years in, and no one is changing. And then all of a sudden, someone embraces proper nutrition, and within 2 to 3 months, they radically change. And everyone's going, "What happened to that person? What happened to that person?"
Who's your trainer?
Yeah.
No, really. It's so true.
Yeah. Like, oh, what type of training are you doing? It's like, I'm training my palate. Right.
Sure.
I'm training my hunger cues. So yeah, it's interesting. It seems very common sense to me, but to most people, they're just oblivious to the fact that until they dial their nutrition in, nothing will happen.
Let me ask you another question about nutrition, because you're talking about that nutrition when it comes to cues that your body gives you. How many folks would you say are hungry versus thirsty, and they're actually wanting to eat when they're really supposed to be drinking? How often do you see this happening, when it comes to the water intake and the food intake, and people, misinterpreting, they want to go eat something when really their body's saying, "Hey, you're dehydrated." How often do you see this?
The interesting thing is that the modern man is really never physically hungry, right? Wow. That is the truth, wow. Right? We have a surplus of food. If you think of like hunter gatherers, they would go 2 days without eating. They could be roaming the savannah looking for game and go 2-3 days without eating.
Amazing, right?
So now what we have is supermarkets. So we don't have to hunt for our food. So what that's created is a surplus of goods, and we always have food accessible, even when we've gone 2, 3, 4 hours without eating. And you hear people say, "Oh, I'm dying. I'm so hungry." That's true. It's like there's only 3, 4 hours, but your hunger cues are not trained because we're used to eating all the time now. And so I don't believe most people are actually physically hungry. I think most people fall into the habit of eating so often. And these are some of the things that we encourage. We think it's helpful to keep that cadence so you're never overly hungry, as long as you're eating the right portions and the right kind of food. But the truth is, the modern man is really never hungry, physically hungry. And so what often happens is that most of us are severely dehydrated. And when you get thirsty, you've been dehydrated for 2 hours already. Right. And so, our bodies are primarily composed of water. And so we're constantly moving, we're constantly losing water weight. And if you're not walking around with one of these things, then most of the time you're dehydrated. Right. And then of course there is the occasional thing that happens. People that drink too much water and get dehydrated because they basically eliminate all of their micronutrients. And so, the idea really is, a minimum. This is a minimum of 36 ounces of water a day, a minimum, right? but you should be in that half a gallon to a gallon of water a day.
So I was going to ask you, just for the folks that are watching right now, and and if you want to get the details and get the full program, I mean, we're going to encourage you and show you how you can do this. We're giving you some great information, gratis right now. But that's one of the things that really changed me. It's like, drinking the water. That's one of the things I just want to mention very quickly as I'm thinking about this, is that your program. You give not only you give visual cues, and like I bought a water bottle, and so it's got, the measurements, full, halfway. All right, you're done. And it's just, even setting up in my phone, I still have the times I'm supposed to be eating, times I'm supposed to be snacking, and it's pretty much kind of done for me. And I'll tell you what, it's the things like this, knowing what to do, how to do, when to do, makes all the difference, and I love this empty your bucket nutrition plan because, it is science, but you don't have to be a scientist, to work it out. You just have to follow the program and listen to the coach. Right. And man, it's just I think that people are really going to benefit from getting involved in this. I mean, I know how it's transformed my life, transformed my family, folks that are around me, people asking questions. And so anyway, let's just jump right back in. I didn't mean to get on a segue there, but
that's good. And before, one of the things you mentioned that I think is really important, you talked about visual cues and the importance of that. And we really, really highlight the importance of visual cues, because if you think about this, the vast majority of soldiers that went to Vietnam tried heroin and got addicted to heroin.
Wow.
Now, when they came back to the States, what was interesting is 97, 98% of those soldiers never used heroin again. And what this speaks about is environment, right? And so, I love the saying that goes, you'll never see a disciplined man that spends too much time in tempting situations.
No, it's true, man.
Right.
That's
so
true.
And I don't know, but that's so encouraging to me, because what that says is that, you actually have the ability to shape your environment. And the way we do that, 80 to 90% of our cues are visual, regardless of who you are. This is how we get tempted. And so what we teach is to create an environment that is going to constantly remind you of what you're doing. And we do that through visual cues, putting your sneakers by the door, having a water bottle to remember to drink water. I talk all the time about the investment I made at home in my backyard. I actually put an enclosure in, I have turf, and I have an outdoor jungle gym, and it was pricey, right? People were like, oh man, like that must have been pretty expensive. Yes, because it needed to hurt, because now I made the investment, and every time I walk out there, I see it and I'm reminded of the investment I made, and it's in my face. I have no excuse. So I've shaped my environment based on my priorities. Some people spend that money on TVs, right? Some people go and buy, these surround systems and TVs. And guess what? Most of those people are sitting around watching Netflix, binging on Netflix while they're covered in Dorito dust, right? And so, my friends laugh at me all the time. They're like, how much money do you have here in fitness? I'm like, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Yep. So
I love it. Speaking of which, let's talk about proper exercise. You talked about your gym. Let's talk about some proper exercise. Let's explain, let's explain the importance of proper exercise in achieving your fitness goals. For me, I know you still do workout. I know you do touch weights, but in a certain phase, in the beginning phases of the empty your bucket nutrition plan, one of the things that I almost choked on, and it wasn't that it was, a deal breaker, but when you said, you don't have to pick up weights, I'm thinking, wait a minute, what do you mean I don't got to pick up weights? I love picking up weights. I want to touch the weights. And you're like, no, don't touch the weights. And honest to God, man, it was probably that was probably harder for me not touching weights than it was not eating the food. I'm telling you, I don't know what I'm thinking I can't believe this, but in just a short period of time of not doing, I thought I was going to lose all kinds of size. I thought I was going to lose muscle. I thought this was going to happen. That was going to happen. I'm going to shrink up, and I was just surprised at how quickly the weight fell off, how my body cooperated. And I was surprised at how I did keep, a certain amount of size. I was actually kind of shocked. So let's talk about how this, I know this is a science. You don't have to be a scientist, but, maybe let's talk about, how do we maximize in achieving fat loss? Like one of the things you encouraged us to do was cardio, fasted cardio first thing in the morning. Maybe let's talk about that for just a minute, as a fitness hack, a way to burn fat longer.
Sure. So if you go on my YouTube channel, you'll see video after video with thumbnails that say, exercise doesn't work, right? And of course I have, those thumbnails that are catchy and get people to click. But the idea there is this, right? For the most part, if you haven't trained your hunger cues and you're training with weights, you're always going to overeat. Always,
Yeah, for sure.
right? So what you end up seeing is guys that are really, or ladies that are muscular, but they're thick, right? I always laugh when I hear females say, I just don't want to get big. I'm like, I dare you to get big, right? Because it takes very much, it takes intention. It takes testosterone is the driving force there for building muscle. And so you can take a lady and you can send her to the gym every day to work out heavy for 6 days a week. And if she's eating right, she's going to develop a nice shaped body, but she's never going to get overly muscular. Some of the ladies that you see that are overly muscular are doing some other things, right? But to answer your question, I think that in the beginning, weights get in the way of really leaning out, right? And this is, I understand this is a polarizing idea, right? Most people are like, oh, you're crazy because muscle burns fat and da-da-da-da. And the more muscle you have, the more fat you burn. And sure, I agree with all those things. But the challenge is most people haven't trained their hunger cues. So this is why we tell people to sort of lay off the weights. And I remember you and I having some conversations around this. You asked questions about the program, and then you didn't come on the program right away. And then I saw you lifting. And I saw you doing some speed ropes, and I'm looking at this guy and I'm going, he's going to come back around. He's going to come back.
I tell you,
and sure enough, you came back around and you saw the difference. So, so this is kind of the order of things, the sequence, right? You dial your nutrition in.
Yeah.
And then you piggyback off of a concept called slow burn cardio.
Love it.
Now, I didn't make this concept up. Someone who really popularized this, it's called steady state cardio or slow burn cardio, is a guy by the name Stu Middleman. Stu Middleman wrote the book Slow Burn Cardio, and Stu is he was an endurance runner. I hope I'm telling the story correctly, but I believe he ran from San Francisco to New York every day, 25, 30 miles in his 60s. And the way he prepared for it was by walking. And what he noticed was that not only was his cardio base getting better by simply walking, but he was decreasing body fat percentages like never before. He actually looked muscular, and he wasn't lifting weights, and he was blown away. But Stu learned this from some indigenous people in Latin America who, as a ritual, just walk every day for 8 to 12 miles. They live longer. They're healthy. They have no cavities. I think their oldest person in their community is like 106, 108, and they have perfect health, and they look muscular, and they don't lift weights. They just basically walk and they hunt. And so, he said, well, if it works for them, it works for me. And he started walking, and, he transformed his health just through walking. So walking is a super powerful thing. It really piggybacks off proper nutrition, of course. And you see bodybuilders do this all the time. If you've ever been to a gym at 5 a.m., the stereotypical thing is to see a big guy in a hoodie, just walking really slow on a treadmill or going on an elliptical. And you're thinking like, what is this guy doing? Bodybuilders have figured out the way to decrease body fat percentages through slow burn cardio and keep on tremendous amounts of muscle because they're not running, biking, sprinting, or doing any of these high cardiovascular activities. So when you combine these two giants of proper nutrition and slow burn, and then you pair that with proper hydration and proper sleep, man, you're a machine. You're a machine.
For sure. Right. Now, since you brought up sleep, now this was another one for me that I had to really tackle, because of the type. And I know you understand this. You've got family, schedule, travel, people that you're talking to in different time zones at different times, and it can get complicated at times. And rest, depending on who you are, where you are, what you're doing, sometimes can be a priority, sometimes not a priority. Mm-hmm. For me, I've always understood the importance of rest, but I didn't really understand the role it played in recovery and also fat loss until I really had a good conversation with you, and we started talking about how actually when you neglect your sleep and you're running on fumes, how it can actually cause you to hold body fat. Is that correct? And actually gain weight. And so why don't we talk about that for just a few moments, how critical the role is, and you can be eating correctly, training correctly, but then, another key component, obviously that I've learned now through your program is sleeping correctly.
Yeah. So, if you look at what the World Health Association says that the two fastest ways to die is to smoke and to be sleep deprived.
Wow.
So number one is smoking. Number two is sleep deprivation. When most people, especially in America, because they're chasing after the American dream, and they have 2-3 jobs, and they're just, they're in the rat race. They're not sleeping enough. And you hear this in the hustle culture. Yeah, sleep when you die, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're going to die really soon if you're not sleeping enough, right? And so what actually happens to our bodies is that when we go into any kind of stress situation, cortisol is secreted, okay?
Okay.
Now, cortisol is not altogether bad. You need a certain level of cortisol. And what happens is when you go to sleep, your oxygen saturation decreases so that you can fall asleep. And with that, your cortisol levels basically plummet when you sleep. So when you first wake up, you have like sort of a battery of cortisol that needs to be filled up for you to be alert, right? So this happens, and this is why I am a proponent for coffee in moderation if it doesn't cause jitters or keep you up or any of these things, because actually coffee in the morning helps those natural cortisol levels charge up. Now, what happens when we feel stressed, in other words, when you're sleep deprived, is that you're secreting too much cortisol. When your body feels stress, it contracts, right? And when it contracts, your metabolism slows down and all of your functions slow down because your body is in alert mode, right? And so if you do that night after night after night after night, you continue to be sleep deprived. What ends up happening is the first thing that you'll notice is, number one, you will start gaining body fat pretty significantly. Number two, you'll start noticing that you lose retention. Your mental acuity is not there, right? You start to forget. Sure. You start to have lapses in your speech. So this is when you hear people go, and you hear those lapses. That really right there is starting to show you that your cognitive abilities are decreasing. And a lot of times that has to do with lack of sleep. But from a weight loss perspective, I tell our clients all the time, if you're not sleeping is the easiest way to keep fat on.
Wow. That's amazing. How difficult is it for you if you have business owners, people that are just moving constantly? How is it that this has probably got to be another one of those big ones, roping folks to get them to, catch, I've got to get more rest. I mean, it took me a minute, but then when I started getting weeks where I was getting more rest and seeing better results, like literally I would see like there's time I could actually almost start to time it like, okay, this week I didn't get enough rest. I had less results. And there's times I was getting like optimal sleep and it was like 7 pounds you dropped in 1 week. I was like, wow. I mean, you literally see it. It's just not like some figment of someone's imagination. I mean, I've actually personally experienced this in my own physical body. It's tremendous. The results.
For sure. I'll go this far. So I have people that are doing everything right inside of the program. They're creating a massive deficit through nutrition, slow burn, and they're not sleeping well. And some of them stay stagnated without losing any weight because of lack of sleep. And so, that's one thing. The other thing is, you think about this and it's like people hit the snooze button 10 times. The majority of people hit the snooze button 10 times. But those same people that are hitting the snooze button are the people that are having a hard time every night going to bed and turning the TV off. So it's like, it's this, cat and mouse type of game where you hit the snooze button, but then you don't want to go to sleep. You're watching TV because you feel stressed and you feel like you need your TV, or maybe you have a glass of wine, or, you're trying to really do that thing to just slow down from the day. I can tell you, Rob, that you can tell me, I would literally go this far. You can gift me a brand new car and say, JT, pick up a brand new car at 10 p.m. and I will deny, and I'll just turn the car back, because I'll say you can have the car because I'm in bed by 8:30. You cannot get me to go anywhere past, if you're going to invite me somewhere, I always say you got to invite me between 4:30 and 6, because I need to be home at 8:30.
Hey, that makes sense.
And people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sleeping because I'm up I'm up super early. Right. But
what time do you actually get up, by the way?
I get up at 3:10. My alarm goes off at 3:10 a.m. Yeah.
Fantastic, man. I love it.
Yeah. I conquered the world between 3 and 6.
No, I feel in that. I'm 4:30 when I get up, and I that's my time, and I completely understand what you mean by that. So many people I come in contact with including myself, and I've stopped doing this now. You mentioned something. I just wanted to bring this up quickly. Maybe we can just talk just briefly before we shift on some tips for getting good rest. I used to keep the TV on as, white noise, to try to lullaby myself to sleep at night. And I thought this was a great technique, really realizing this thing was actually keeping me up and would wake me up in the middle of the night, when various things would be, coming across my screen that I wasn't aware of. And, you're not creating really an environment of peace. What are some tips, including shutting the TV off, removing yourself from electronic devices? What are some of the things that we can do to actually enhance our sleep and get a better night's rest? Are there maybe a couple of things you could, encourage us to do?
Yeah. So, there's so many sleeping protocols, but I would say primarily, you want to make sure that, and this is kind of the, knee jerk reaction that most people have when it comes to sleeping protocols. It's like, oh, you want to turn any bright lights off 2 hours prior to going to bed. I think to an extent that's important because of the way our eyes are very much attuned to daylight and until it's dark. This is why I always say that the most restorative sleep happens between 8:30 p.m. and 1 a.m. Right. Wow. These are like the darkest times, and this is when it's best to fall asleep. So I always say nothing good happens after 10 p.m. You should be in bed before 10 p.m. And oftentimes I get, people fight back and say, well, I go to sleep at 12, but I don't wake up till 6. I'm still getting 6 or 7 hours of sleep. And my argument to that is you're really skipping through some of the most restorative times that there is to sleep. Even if you go to bed at 1 and you wake up at 8, you would argue I've slept 8 hours, but that's not the same kind of sleep you would get between the hours of 9 and 1 a.m. I mean, and I say that because that's when you fall into that REM sleep. And then if you're getting up at 4 or 5, you're gonna feel way more rested than if you go to bed at 12 or 1 a.m.
I mean, you're right about this because with their sleep cycles and people just are not aware of this. And it's so funny that, this is not just opinion any longer. This is actually science, backing this up now that when you get proper rest, your body functions the way it's supposed to. So,
yeah, I mean, my sleep protocols are this, right? So I don't drink any caffeine past 2 p.m., right? Okay. Past 2 p.m., I cut my caffeine out, try to exercise daily. That obviously is going to make you have, better sleep, fall asleep earlier. I try to turn off all electronic devices 2 hours prior to going to bed. I like to actually take a warm shower before I go to bed. Because it really, really helps. It just relaxes you. I drop my temperature. I live in Florida, so I drop my AC to 72. It really, really helps to have a cold room. I have some like my own little over the counter things. I've been taking magnesium. And so they come in these capsules. I take magnesium from a company called Intelligent Labs. And then I take something called Mag Enhance, which is basically a essence of valerian root. And wow. And so those two combinations there of magnesium and the valerian root, they come in a pill, and I take that, man. And I'll tell you, it's great because what it does, it actually shuts off the front part of your brain. If you're a thinker, if you have stuff going on, it really helps you go to sleep. And when you wake up, you don't feel groggy. So it's great, right? So those are my sleep my sleep protocols. And man, I feel great. People tell me all the time, don't you feel tired? I'm like, look, I prioritize sleep. I prioritize a nap. I mean, I know everyone doesn't have the ability to do that, right? But I lived in Spain when I was playing soccer. And so I don't know if you've ever been to Spain, but Spain, everyone takes what they call the siesta, which means so what ends up happening in Europe is real interesting. They actually, if you go outside at 10:30, 11 o'clock during the week, there's people out having dinner and like enjoying life. And if you ask any Spaniard, like, hey, don't you work tomorrow? And they're like, oh yeah, I'll just nap at lunchtime. Their lunchtime is from 1 to 4 p.m. If you go to anyone's home in Spain between the hours of 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., they'll be in their pajamas. Right. That's
amazing.
And they're taking the nap and then they just go back to work. And so I don't take a 4-hour nap, but I certainly take a 30-minute nap. It refreshes me. It restores me.
Oh, for sure. I love it.
I'm ready to go again, and it's healthy. It's the healthiest thing you can do, man. It's the healthiest thing you can do. So if you can prioritize a nap, then man, that is one of my health hacks for sure.
I love it. As we're coming to a close today on this particular show, I wanted to ask you, we left out one component that I think is actually critical for this type of format, and that's accountability. And it's not a cuss word, it's not a curse word. It's actually, when you've got the right coach and you've got the right accountability, it's actually a blessing. It's boundaries that keep you in safe waters and keep you from, going into deep places you're not supposed to. And I think one of the greatest things for me, working with you directly, and I'm going to encourage other folks to jump on with you to see the results, is that I knew I had to weigh in every week. I knew I had to measure in every week. I knew I was going to have to send you some pictures. And, just the thought of, okay, the weekend's coming up. I want to show a loss, not a gain. I want to make some progress. That was great motivation. And also, just even hearing compliments from people along the journey, it just sort of like gave me fuel. Not that I was living for the compliments, but just as people, I didn't have anyone tell me in the gym before, hey, I can tell you've lost weight. That, when a trainer pulled me to the side and said, hey, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You look great. I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to keep it. It was just, here I am. I've been working out for 3 years, same people, same gym, same environment, same weights. I just tried a different system. And so, putting the combination together of the proper nutrition, the rest, the recovery, all these different things, I think without the accountability, and even for me, I thought, I got this, I'm good, but something just went to a whole different level for me personally when I knew I had to get on a call with you. So can we talk about accountability and then talk about, what the Empty Your Bucket plan can do for you in a 90-day way? Because, this is not something you do in a week, 2 weeks, not even a 30-day or 6 days. It's a 90-day program. And after going through it myself, I realized you need 90 days. 30 days is not enough. 60 days is not enough. You're detoxing, you're training, you're renewing, you're learning new habits, breaking old habits. So the 90-day program is essential, in my opinion. But having said all that, what role does accountability play in the Empty Your Bucket nutrition plan?
Oh man. So that is one of the key features inside of what we do. We don't just practice accountability. We practice something called hyper accountability, which means basically we're in touch every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. We have, the client has access to us, 6 days a week. The idea there is to answer any questions, concerns. More importantly, is to keep you accountable to the things you said you were going to commit to when you were excited, right? So first 2 weeks are the honeymoon phase. Everyone is excited and ready to do things, but accountability is everything, right? Yeah. People make fun of me because I have a trainer. I have a trainer that meets me at 4 a.m. and they're like, JT, why do you need a trainer? You have 6 certifications. You owned and operated gyms for 23 years. Why do you need a trainer? And the answer to that is I need a trainer because I need accountability too.
I love it.
And if I can't be accountable to someone else, I have no right to keep others accountable. And so the force that accountability has is huge. I'm always entertained by this story, right? There's a famous speaker, I'll keep his name out, who got paid $100,000 to go speak to the Marine Corps. And when the Marine Corps said, what does it cost for you to come and speak to some of our former Marines? And he said, it costs $100K. But then the speaker was a little taken back and he said, but wait a second, the Marines, these guys are super accountable. What do you want me to come and speak to them about accountability? He says, yeah, what you don't understand is that when they are inside of the Marines, they have a peer group that keeps them accountable. What we've noticed is that after they leave the Marine Corps, they lose all their discipline and self-control because they no longer have the accountability. These are Marines, right? This is the strongest force on earth. And what this colonel was saying, he was saying, we need for you to remind them of the power of accountability and for them to stick together in peer groups because this is how they're going to elevate. And so, man, any person that's really looking to take it to the next level needs accountability. Everyone needs a coach. The coach needs a coach.
Love it. It's like you become who you associate with, and I'm about to do another shred program with you, and just already knowing that, I'm going to be checking in, getting back on task again. It already is motivating me because I've been through it. And I just know when you have good accountability and it's healthy, it's a beautiful thing. And I will say there have been a lot of people out there that have been abused by accountability. There's been a lot of, miscommunication about accountability, but when it's done in a God honoring way, and you're following principles, man, it's actually freedom. Some people think, oh, that's control. It's this, it's that. And to me, it's like freedom. It's really taking the lid off. And like you say, it's in the ministry realm, you'll hear people say every pastor needs a pastor, every rabbi needs a rabbi, and it's true. Every trainer needs a trainer. And the fact that you still have a trainer, speaks volumes and of the type of coach you are, and that the type of coaching program that you have. Speaking of which, 90 days. Why 90 days? Very quickly, and then we're going to tell people how they can jump on board and start their fitness journey as well.
Yeah. So if you think of the idea that it takes a good 60, I think it was Yale that did a study. It said that one habit takes 60 days to implement, to really make as part of your lifestyle. I honestly believe it's 90 to 120 days, right? A lot of things happen from a behavioral standpoint on day 60, right? And I know this because we have the data. We start to see people, not just because from the very beginning, as you mentioned in that the first episode of this fitness series, you mentioned that you said that you saw some quick results, and that's what our program is characterized by: the fact that you're going to get very quick results in the beginning, and that you're going to sustain 2 to 4 pound weight loss throughout the entire process, which is an immense amount of weight to lose. But the idea there really is that in that line of 30, 60, and 90, what we see is that people are getting results from the beginning, but then right around day 60, we start to hear things that sound a little like this. Wow, I saw a picture of myself yesterday, and I'm never going back to who I used to be.
Man,
I now recognize I was using food as comfort. I'm no longer doing that. I now realize that the whole time that I was eating, I was just nervous, or I had fear, or there was anxiety, or there was boredom, and I'm no longer doing that. What that says is that now you have not just changed from a strategic standpoint, from dynamics. You're not following rules. Now a conviction has taken place. It's interesting that there's a guy who has he's experimented with long-term fasting, and he used to fast for 100 days.
Wow.
He recently he sort of got away from that, and now he says that the right way to fast is 40 days. I wonder who came up with that, right?
The Bible,
yeah, exactly. Jesus, right? And so, but here's the thing: we know that transformation happens right around day 45. We start to hear some really cool things where we understand it's not just about people disciplining themselves, but now something else has taken over, right? Their mindset has changed. Now they have this conviction that is leading to different actions, and that's super powerful. And so 90 days is kind of that little magic number where we know we can make some really cool things happen sustainably. And 90 days is that magic number. It's very popular in fitness to hear the 90-day program this, the 90-day program that. When you ask most coaches, they don't understand why. But
this is real science. I mean, this is real, backed up now, years of science showing this is, you want results, you can't do it in 15 days. There's no fast way out of it, right?
Yeah. If you think of the Japanese concept of shu-ha-ri. Shu-ha-ri, I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, but it came up in it's a martial arts sort of philosophical concept, and it says that shu is that you don't know what you don't know, right? So you come into something, you don't really know anything about it. You're kind of oblivious to things. You don't know that you didn't know this thing, and then ha is that place where now you understand what you don't know, right? Let me say that again. Now you realize, well, I didn't know that I was eating out of emotional reasons. I didn't know that I was eating out of boredom, right? You understand that it's still a challenge, but now you understand what you're up against, right? So shu is, I don't know what I'm dealing with. Ha is, I know what I'm dealing with, but I'm still battling with it. And then ri is when you understand and now you know what to do, right? Awesome. And now you unconsciously just do it, just like you drive your car. You don't have to think about driving your car. You just got to get in your car. You put the signal and it happens automatically. It's now in your subconscious mind.
That's training yourself. That's training yourself to do the right thing, right?
That's what ri is. So shu is the first step. That's phase 1, right?
Love it.
Phase 2, ha. And then ri is when you actually understand, your hunger cues, you understand that takes about shu-ha-ri usually takes between 90 to 120 days.
Another question I've got to sneak in here before we shift gears. How many folks come to you after they have started losing weight? They're starting to feel better, look better, obviously. How many of you, like myself, have said, man, the swelling went down? Hey, like for me, I was shocked, like literally shocked. I'll just give you a quick testimony. I had a surgery on my wrist and on my arm, and I actually needed surgery in 6 different places, including my elbow. There was just areas that were swollen. And when I went back into the doctor pre-surgery, he said, man, we need to take another look at your hand. Weren't we going to do this and this and this? And he started mentioning all things. And I said, yeah, we were. He goes, well, we don't need to do that anymore because the swelling in my index finger, my thumb, on this side of my hand had been completely, it just was eliminated. And so when I went in to do surgery to fix the ligament in my hand, I literally did not have to have surgery in like 4 to 5 different places, which expedited the recovery time. But one of the things he said, you're obviously taking much better care of yourself, and whatever you're doing, continue. And this was like when I was right in the middle, actually almost to the tail end of when I started the program with you. And I'm telling you, the mucus buildup that I had in terms of, I was thinking it was, what was going on in the air. It was my diet. My body was literally, telling me there's something wrong. So how many folks do you start to see that have these turnarounds that really, it's not just the abs, but it's like, well-being, quality of life, wow, this particular area of my life got healed. How much have you seen of that?
So we say that the first 3 weeks is when you see the biggest leaps and bounds, and everyone is different. And I'm very careful to create any false expectations, but people that are adhering to the principles can lose anywhere. We see people lose anywhere between 12 to 15 pounds in the first 3 weeks. And what people generally come back and say is, oh, I know that's all water weight. But truly what it is decrease in inflammation, because sugar is an inflammatory factor, right? So when we naturally take foods that spike a lot of insulin, such as starches, we decrease those, or we move them away for a little bit and we bring in fibrous carbs. What we end up seeing is that people's inflammation markers decrease significantly. And so this is where a lot of the pain goes away. People that have arthritis, carpal tunnel, they're like, I feel so much better. I wonder why. What's going on? I don't feel like I'm swollen anymore. Well, because sugar is inflammatory, and when you're eating lots of starches, which is part of the American diet, pasta, breads, rice, even beans, lentils, garbanzos. Even if you're eating brown rice, people tell me all the time, well, I eat the good carbs. Yeah, but if you eat too much of that, you're also spiking a lot of insulin there. Sure. And that's creating an inflammatory factor. So when you can minimize those or put them aside for a little bit, what you notice is that all those issues that you were having, maybe carpal tunnel, maybe arthritis, a lot of those things are alleviated big time because you're no longer swollen. So it's super powerful.
Fabulous. JT, I want to thank you so much for being on today's podcast. If you did not catch episode 1, I want you to make sure that you capture that and watch that. It goes right along with episode 2. And if you have any questions about the Empty Your Bucket nutrition plan, there's a link that you can follow. And if you want to lose weight, if you want to get in shape, if you want to change your whole body structure, that's what's happened to me. And and not just your structure, the way you look, but even the way you feel, getting your energy back, getting your life back. I really encourage you to join this family, this community, the Empty Your Bucket Nutrition Program. JT is a phenomenal coach and trainer. His team are phenomenal, and they will treat you well. It was wonderful to be on the show with you today, and we'll catch you on another episode. God bless.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much, JT.